Hey everyone, welcome to another Toon podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's biggest and best podcast, all things Newcastle United. And boy, have we got a show for you today. We probably won't stop smiling for the next hour or so. I've probably never been so pumped to do a podcast in my life. Bobby, I'll start with you at Ballarat. How are you, mate?
Going well, Keegs. Flying, actually. So I've meant to be working the last 2 days, but all I've done is sit there and watch endless content
Yes.
non-stop, and not much work has been done, to be honest. So, no, it's what a time to be a Newcastle fan right now.
It is amazing. And we are joined by a very, very special guest. Second time on means you're officially a friend of the pod. Andy Sixsmith, all the way in a balmy Newcastle at the moment, a nice 10-degree winter day, which is rare. You've only got 2 layers on, so that's a positive. How are you, Andy?
How am I? I mean, you could have invited me on at a time when there's actually things happening around Newcastle and there's stuff to talk to. I mean, how are we going to fill an hour?
Yeah.
How are we going to fill an hour? What are we going to talk about?
Hopefully, we get a few viewer comments to try and keep us keep us to an hour. Wow, what a 48 hours, I guess it's been in the world of Newcastle United. Just when you think this renaissance of a club and a city to an extent couldn't get any better, here we are, semi-final bound, probably got the second best draw we could have hoped for. It's a crazy time to be a Newcastle fan, isn't it, Andy?
I mean, just hearing you say that, I've heard a few of
it's
stupid. Well, semi-final. It's like, what? What? Semi-final? What the heck is one of those? Like, what was the last one we were in? Even was it 2000 Chelsea? Well, last time we were at Wembley was back in like April 2000 FA Cup semi against Chelsea. I think Rob Lee scored.
I've had a couple of stiffies say, "Oh, you were at Wembley a few years ago when you played Tottenham there," and I said that doesn't count. Like, no.
Doesn't matter.
That doesn't count at all.
Playing at Wembley, so we're not bothered about. Oh my god! Like what a week, can we just say? Because the week started off, and I hate to start off on a really negative note by us being dumped out of the FA Cup by Sheffield Wednesday, and Eddie was not happy about that in the slightest. You know. Fielded a team that should have been good enough, with all due respect to Wednesday, were excellent, I thought, to beat them. So there was a lot of disappointment around that. But I tell you what, that opening 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes against Leicester on Tuesday night.
Oh,
Jesus.
I'll get tingles just thinking about the roar, and you could feel the emotion through the TV on the other side of the world. Like it was mental.
Crazy.
It's incredible. And you know what? How good is it to see your own team fly at teams like that, straight out the traps, no messing. All right, we didn't stick the ball in the back of the net, and we probably should have scored 4 inside the opening 10. But that's the second time we've done that to Leicester this season, and it's the umpteenth time that we've done that to a team at St James's Park. And it is just so blooming good to see them go, we haven't got any fear. We've got these 52,000 Rajis behind us at St James's Park.
Yeah. Good.
We're right up for this. We want to right the wrongs of Saturday. We're coming out here. We want to make a semi-final, and we want to hopefully go on and win a trophy and make history this season for Newcastle. And bang, Leicester didn't know what to do. They had about 10 minutes at the end of the first half where they just started to climb their way into the game, Leicester. And I thought, maybe we've missed the chances. Maybe we've missed a chance to do something here. And then we did it again, start the second half. And then obviously, the moment of the week, the moment of the season arrives when Big Dan Burn, Disco Dan, decided he was going to come to the party in prime Maradona, Messi style.
Oh, mate. Right foot too. I could not believe it.
You know what? We sat down with Dan and Longy. I put this out on social media the other day, literally the night actually. And when he put the ball in the back of net, as well as running around, because I wasn't at the game, but I was celebrating massive. I apologize if any of my neighbours watch this podcast. Which, they could do. Who knows? It is the largest Southern Hemisphere podcast. If any of my neighbours are watching it, I apologise massively for the noise that erupted from my apartment on Tuesday night. No one was dying. It was Dan Burns scoring at the Gallagher end for Newcastle United for his first goal.
Unreal.
But the first kind of or secondary thought that came into my mind was that chat we had with Dan was like, and I talked to, I think we were doing this feature, and I said, do you agree or disagree? You're better with your feet than you are with your head. And Dan turned around and was like, no, I'm better with my feet. I strongly agree. I'm better with my feet. And I said, well, when's the first goal arrive? And he was like, and tongue firmly in cheek, a very, very funny bloke is Dan. He said, I always get one a season. So it's coming. It's coming. I've got 6 months to do it. And I don't care if it goes in off my backside. I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered at all. It'll happen this season. I'll probably be with my feet. And I said, have you got a celebration plan just in case? And he was like, well, no. It'll just be like one of those moments on FIFA where you're just button bashing. And I do about 18 celebrations in one. Not only does he score like a prime Lionel Messi, that knee slide, fair play to the boy. He timed that with bloody perfection.
It probably upset me a bit because I reckon if the fence wasn't there, he would have been running past my house about now in Australia. I don't think he would have stopped.
He said that post-match, didn't he? He said, look, I didn't know what to do. And I was running so quick, you don't get stopping a 6'7" bloke. So I just went down on my knees and I stopped.
You had to put the anchors down before he got there.
I genuinely, I've been happy for a lot of Newcastle players because honestly, boys, they are such a lovely group to be around in any way, in a very, very minimal way from my perspective, just to interview them. But what a lovely set of blokes they are, as well as being very, very good football players. And I've been pleased for a lot of them in different ways this season. Joe Linton's Renezo, Miggy, of course, who was, again, kind of went under the radar a little bit on Tuesday night because of Dan, because of Joe Linton, because of Bruno deciding to, WWE the referee. But I thought Miggy was absolutely mint on Tuesday. But honest to God, this season there's been so many moments where I have been so happy on a kind of personal note as well for an individual player. I think that was the happiest I've been for a player. That story, it is a modern day fairy tale for that to happen.
I've got a feeling we're going to bounce around a bit here. We'll do some talk about the end. We might talk about the game and we'll hop around everywhere. But that word you just said then, Andy, the moments word, Eddie spoke about that after the game in something very rare. Like we don't, not just in Newcastle, but anywhere, we don't really see the cameras inside the changing rooms for a Premier League club post-game. And like, Bobby, I'm the same as you. I'm a sort of an Aussie rules coach at heart, and I can't get enough of that coaching content, I guess. And the moments that you've spoken about, and that's what he's referenced, his first sort of thing post-game is the moment. Remember these moments. And it's like he said, it's not just tonight, it's life as well. And if you want to look at it as a holistic thing for the season, or even if you want to extrapolate it to since the takeover, we've just had moment after moment after moment, and it's crazy. And I'm with you 100%, mate. This is that Dan Burn goal is probably the moment since the takeover. Like the player, his story, the occasion, the whole thing. It just goes to the top for me. How about you, Bobby?
Oh, certainly. I think our voice chat lit up when Dan Burn scored, and it was all,
50% battery wasted on dings, I reckon.
I think
we're all just watching Dan's dance.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. And with the dance was another moment. The dance was even better in a way. And we've got to get you to attempt that dance too, by the way, Andy.
Not a chance. I was going to preempt that, and there's no way in hell. No one deserves to see that in Australia, England, anywhere in the world.
But that moment was just incredible. Because I think it meant more for Newcastle fans that one of our own had just done that at the Gallagher end in a time. Like, let's put the game in contrast as well. We had missed a bucket load of chances in the first half and at the start of the second. And it was looking like one of those games where we dominate and probably miss our opportunity. Yeah. And then big Dan Burn, the boy from Blythe with that incredible song that can't get out of my head, goes and turns into Lionel Messi and then scores a goal. So, just incredible. You can't put it into words, really.
Just on the goal as well, the actual goal, it's not even just the finish, but it was actually Dan who closed down Mark Albrighton anyway.
Yeah, his passing actually led to the turnover that started the goal.
And then obviously the move, I thought the pass from Joe Linton was superb, by the way, but I'm sure we'll come on to Joe Linton as well. But it was initially Dan closing down before he just decided, screw it. I'm going to maraud forward, left angle of the penalty area. I'm going to see what happens. Quick feet, shifted it onto his right. All right, went through Marty's legs. Who gives a shit? Right in the bottom corner. I mean, it was a hell of a finish. Accomplished finish.
It was a striker's finish, not a 6'7" out of position left back finish. That's for sure.
No.
Do you want to know what the funny thing is, though, boys? Like we were, who was I talking to? I can't remember. Oh, is it Longy? Might have been Longy actually who pointed this out a while back, and he said every time in training that they do set piece training and they practice the set pieces, Fabi Scher absolutely hammers Dan Burn because he doesn't score enough in training. And every time he misses a header or something in training, Fabi's like, you're 6'7". You should be scoring this with your head. And then Dan just goes, screw it. Tuesday night, cup quarter final, Gallagher end. Just going to waltz through and I'm going to put one in the bottom corner of my right peg. Not even my strongest foot.
Yeah. But you know what? That's exactly what I was saying at the TV when he missed those headers. I'm like, you're bloody 6'7", mate. Just put it in. I'm 5'3", and like, you know, you've got all the gifts in the world to be 6'7". Yeah. Just put the bloody thing in the net.
It was the first thing he said. It was the first thing he said. He was like, I missed 2 sitters. I'm like, Callum Wilson would say that. Like that's the mentality of a prime striker going, yeah, I scored, but I missed 2. I'm like, bloody hell, Dan, you've been having a chat with Wills, haven't you? Excellent.
I'll circle back to what you were talking about earlier when you sat down, Andy, with Sean and Dan. You've been popping up doing a little bit of stuff with the club as well this season. What's been the favourite thing that you've done through the club this year? Was it with Sean and Dan?
That's up there. That is definitely up there. To be honest, 2 of them up. I'll give you 3. Oh, fuck. No, I'll give you 4. Can I give you 4?
Go ahead, mate.
Just go. Absolutely.
Right. 2 of them are easy. One you've mentioned. That piece with Sean and Dan was class. And I'm delighted that Newcastle actually put all of it out because also Premier League, we only managed to put out a 3-minute feature, I think, on Matchday Live because we only had that amount of time for the slot. But it didn't really do justice to all of it. We had such a good time that day. Like some of the crack was fantastic between the pair of them. I'm sure you've seen the Amazon Prime stuff by now.
I genuinely had tears this afternoon when he does that. I watched it like 10 times. Like I just couldn't.
It's gone more viral than his dance.
Yeah,
no idea where it came from. So definitely that day. The other one was involved. Another one was involving Longy when we sat down with him and Sven Botman because Sven was still kind of getting to know the club and everything, and he was quite quiet. So we did a dual interview with him and Sean. Obviously, Sean's quite loud and quite a character. Brilliant lad. And the 2 of them, unbeknownst to me, were quite good friends already. And some of the crack between those 2 was sensational. I remember asking Sven what he thought of his Rolls Royce nickname. And Sven was like, I like Rolls Royces, what can I say? But I'm not entirely sure. And then I said to Sean, like, if he's a Rolls Royce, what are you? And he looked and he was like, no, I'm like one of those clapped out cars that have got shitloads of miles on them and it just keeps going and going and going and going. And I was like, that's genuinely one of the best answers I've had from a footballer in all of my years of broadcasting. So definitely that. Third one was a post-match interview with Bruno after I want to say Brentford, but it might have been the Villa game. It was just after he dyed his hair peroxide blonde. And we got him in post-match. I asked for him in post-match because you boys know the love I have for Bruno Guimaraes. I would ask for him in post-match a lot of the time. But we had him in post-match and literally no one else had kind of asked him about his hair. And obviously knowing Bruno a little bit, because we interview him quite a bit, it's like, Bruno, man, like we need to talk this. Every time you change your hairstyle or colour, you score. And he just started laughing. And I don't think much came out of it. Not much insight came out of it. Not much content came out of it. But it was just seeing him really, really relaxed and be like, you know what? I'm going to keep this for the World Cup. The less said about that, the better from a Brazilian standpoint. But that's not down to Bruno because he barely got played, which is mental. But we won't go into that. So that was number 3. Number 4 was Eddie and Jason and all of the coaching staff visiting the foundation for mental health. And I thought that was really, really enlightening. I could have talked to Eddie we only had 10, 15 minutes with him, and we had to fit in all of our match previews as well. But I could have talked to Eddie for about 2 or 3 hours about mental health alone. I thought he was brilliant with every single member of the fans. And why it's one of my favourite moments was it encapsulated everything that Eddie Howe is. He's not just obsessed with football, excuse me, but he's also obsessed with getting to know people. I've said this numerous times, he's a bloody brilliant bloke. And I thought that summed it up. He took time around everyone, played a bit of walking football, scored a tap in, fair play for a defender. It was a nice little finish. But it was just how he was around everyone and how he spoke about mental health and how important it was to him and to the players and to Newcastle. And all the time we talk about the connection that this team, this club, is now building back up with the fan base. That encapsulated it for me. And I just thought Eddie and the community, Eddie and Newcastle United Foundation, I thought it was just a brilliant day. And I thought it just summed up everything that Newcastle United is all about right now. Community, connection, and passion. And that's what we are all about.
Yeah, brilliant. You're a lucky man, Andy. Those experiences are mind-blowing for us on the other side of the world, I think.
That's narrowing it down to 4, mate. Honestly, anytime I sit down with a player, it tends to be very, very just relaxed and everything. And I'm not one of those people who kind of ever takes my job for granted because it might be the last day in my job at every single time. So even if it is, I can just turn around and say, you know what, screw it. As a fan as well, you're involved at a time when the club is just doing an incredible amount of work on and off the pitch. And as far as I'm concerned, I never ever take that for granted because, you know, I'm not even a part of it. I'm very, very fortunate to report on it at some points and chat to them. So yeah, all works out. This has got very, very somber all of a sudden, hasn't it? This has got very, very philosophical.
Yeah, we'll sharpen up a bit. Do you want to give us a I've definitely noticed on your Twitter the last 12 days your Fact 15 challenge or your goal, I guess.
Yeah.
Challenge is probably the worst. Goal will be at the end of the year when you complete it. But do you want to give our viewers and our listeners a bit of an insight into your Fact 15 challenge and what it's about, why you're doing it, how do we donate, and things like that as well?
So I'll keep this quite brief because it's obviously not much to do with Newcastle, but I appreciate you guys giving me the leg up on this one. So I'm a patron of a cancer charity called FACT in the Northeast. Does a lot of work for people who are diagnosed with cancer, but not just them, their family, their friends, everyone who's connected to those people, because we all, for anyone who's, you know, known a friend, family member, whoever else who has had cancer, it's difficult for absolutely everyone. FACT do a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job in the Northeast and across the country for such a small charity. So I've been patron of FACT for 7-8 years now. Very, very fortunate to have been. And we've done a lot of work together. FACT turned 15 this year, 2023. And I thought to myself, what can a really insignificant patron do for the charity to try and raise some money, try and raise 15 grand with the 15th year? And being a completely shit endurance athlete, I thought that the natural thing was to basically run 15 endurance events across 12 months, which actually equates to 11 because I'm not doing anything in December this year. So 15 and 11, essentially. So it starts in less than 2 weeks. It starts in 10 days' time in Manchester, half marathon. I think I'm running 10 half marathons, at least one marathon, and the rest will be 10 milers, just to make it. And I reiterate, for someone who is shit at endurance running, I was a swimmer back in the day. I've never been a runner. As a swimmer, I was a sprinter, 50 and 100 meter. Wasn't particularly good at that either, but I persevered. For a runner who doesn't really run past 6 miles or 10K, whatever you want to use as metrics, this scares the shit out of me, and I have no idea why I actually came up with the idea. I'm pretty sure I was pissed. Pretty sure I was pissed. And now I've backed myself into a corner.
Yeah.
So got to do it now. So yeah, hopefully, if anyone is listening, my Just Giving page is out there. It's on my Twitter right at the top. It's on my Instagram page. It is I cannot dumb down the amount of work that FACT do for such a small charity. And obviously, a lot of us know anyone who's been affected by cancer. It's a fucking awful disease. So we need as many donations as possible, because I think we're about 700, which is brilliant. 700 quid inside a week is absolutely insane. And the majority of them have come from Newcastle United Twitter. So thank you so much to Newcastle United Twitter followers, mainly followers of Toon Pulls. So shout out to Liam for that. But anyone who has donated so far, thank you very, very much. And at the very, very least, for your £10 or £5 or £15, however much you donate, you'll get to see me in pain, which is surely worth your donation alone. All right. But yeah, it's going well so far. We did a half marathon on Monday, just training, and absolutely killed us, to be honest, even though we were meant to be doing it slow. So 10 days to go, first half marathon in Manchester. Can't wait.
Yes.
Good luck, mate.
We'll throw it up on our socials as well. If you're listening via audio platform, we'll chuck it in the show notes, a link for the website, for the donation page as well, and it'll be up on our YouTube. So if anyone wants to do it and you're not sure, you've got Andy's socials, our socials will pump it up as well. And if you can spare anything, please donate for a great cause. And we've all been touched by cancer in some way, and we know the hardships that these people go through. So for them to make things a little bit easier, both for the patient and the families involved, is a fantastic thing. So yeah, give what you can, and good luck for it all, Andy.
Sorry, Pete. I think I said the other day in some interview I did about it, and they literally were like, "How scared are you about it?" And I said, "I'm bloody scared, because this is going to be very painful for a shit athlete like me. But it's not as painful as anyone who's ever been through any form of cancer, whether it's family, friends. And to be honest with you, as cliched as it sounds, that's probably what's going to be in my mind at about mile 11, 12 of each half marathon, mile 23, 24 of a marathon. You know, that pain is nothing compared to what millions of people go through. So as far as I'm concerned, let's get this fucking thing beat once and for all.
Yes, for sure. All right, we'll move back on to Newcastle. We've given our Dan Burn gushes and things like that. Now, what's been lost in the quite rightly Dan Burn love affair is the second goal, which pretty much sealed our qualification into the semi-final. It was from the Brazilian bulldozer himself. It was a great finish.
Sorry, I'm just going to
write that down. Yeah. Tag me in.
Copyright King.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bobby, you've been on his train for, I reckon it'll be over 12 months now since Eddie took over. The floor's yours, mate. You can take your Joelinton Renaissance whichever way you want.
Oh boy, I haven't even prepared for this, but I absolutely love the man. I think, Andy, like you love Bruno, I think I've just backed this guy for so long, and you know, to see him be the player he is now and doing what he's doing, his defensive work rate is just phenomenal. He is, and I was thinking about this after the game, after I got over the Dan Burn dance, was I don't think I've seen a better athlete in my time at the club. He is built like a brick shithouse. He runs miles a game, and his effort and relentlessness is just phenomenal. So, I mean, the second goal was taken with aplomb, which is probably his weakest attribute. He's when he gets into the box, but my God, what a player he is. He is turning into being, you know, one of the best midfielders, left wingers in the Premier League, and soon to be the world. And I think Brazil made an absolute wrong decision. I think that a lot of their fans now, if I'm going through Twitter, are realising how good this guy is. So I love the bloke, and good luck to him. And he's such a good bloke. So, yeah, so happy for him.
I thought you were getting all teary there, Bobby, for a second. You
I
were
do.
starting to get all emotional. I could see that it's beautiful.
Mate,
beautiful.
The lads who know me know how much I care for Joel Linton, and I've been because I used to defend him when everyone was on his back. So it's just great to see.
It's a renaissance story.
Yes.
And you know what? Like, just to kind of pick up on something you said there, Bobby, something really stood out to me on Tuesday night. I think it was like the 88th, 89th minute, something like that. And Joel, we're 2-0 up, going through.
Oh, yes, I see this.
Joel,
yeah, this was crazy.
Literally closes down every member of the Leicester back five. Just sprints after them, closes them down. And I was like, you know what? Yes, Dan scored. Yes, Joel Linton scored. Yes, Miggy's had another blinder. Yes, Bruno's taken out the referee. There are so many moments of this game that stand out for me. But from a purely footballing aspect and from a purely can a player sum up the Eddie Howe effect and the Eddie Howe intensity, that 25 seconds encapsulated it. Now, that might not sound a lot to a lot of people, but 89 minutes into a high-intensity game in a League Cup quarter-final, when you've also played at the weekend and played countless numbers of games this season, Joel Linton, and he's still able to do that and still willing to do that, that's the mark of the man.
Yeah.
And, I'm with you, Bobby. He's an absolute blinder of a player and a person.
Yeah, I think
you go, Bobby.
Just on, we'll touch on a bit of a funny side on the Joel Linton talk is Kieran Dyer's comments. Jack says it here. Credit to Steve Bruce for putting him in the midfield. As an avid Joel Linton fan who's followed his career since Hoffenheim into Newcastle, that was the most bewildering comment I think I've ever heard from a pundit ever. And what was your take on that, Andy?
What, with my professional hat on? I'm going to keep very professional, boys, because you wouldn't expect anything less from me. It was an odd one. I've heard some strange comments from people, but that's an odd one. Kieran's perfectly entitled to his opinion. Also, there seems to be a bit of a misconception here that Joel Linton first played in midfield, and he was found in midfield against Norwich when Kieran Clark was sent off. Joel Linton actually dropped back into midfield in the game before against Brighton, when Eddie Howe was in the stands. And I'm not saying Eddie noticed him then in midfield, because he's talked at length about this. And obviously it was, for 60, 65 minutes that he basically played in midfield against Norwich. But that was the kind of first glimpse of what he could do in midfield, regardless of who discovered him. I think a lot of it was down purely a bit by accident, by necessity. But by God, that's one of the best things I think that's happened to Newcastle. And now you look back and you think, £40 million. Actually, that's blooming good value in this modern day market, is it not? For an athletic, all-round midfielder who can get you goals, albeit not many. I think Joel Linton's the first person to admit he'd like to get more goals in his game. But he's got the tackling, he's got the pressing, he's got the positional sense. As soon as you drop him back into that kind of midfield three, he changes. He completely changes. And it's weird to say this, but I prefer Joel Linton in midfield and Joe Willock on the left wing.
That's a good segue, Andy, because Joe Willock's last sort of, I was going to say month, but it hasn't quite been a month since we've come back from the World Cup. But just before the World Cup and probably his last 2 or 3 games, I think he was a little bit slated, I guess. Some people call him for to be dropped, especially early in the season as well. I think that sort of 7-8 game streak where he scored every week probably hasn't done him any favours in the long run. But I think his season has been criminally underrated from a Newcastle point of view. And I think that interchanging that him and Joel Linton do on that left wing, I think some people don't give him the pace he's credited for as well. He has got some serious wheels. And if you're not sure about how quick he is, I urge you to go back and look at that goal where Bruno scored against Leicester in the 94th minute. And he was that when he breaks down that left wing, he is putting meters between him and his opponent in the 94th minute. He's been criminally underrated. He's a vital part of what Newcastle have been about this year.
He did it, just to point another example out, earlier on this season against Manchester City. Obviously, Kyle Walker's no slouch. His positional sense is probably up for debate, but he's very, very quick. And Joe absolutely burnt him on 2 or 3 occasions. There's one that went not viral, but it got put out in the Twitter sphere. And he just blew past him with the ball.
Which is the hardest thing to do, to run at pace with the ball.
Because with all due respect to Joe, and I'll come back to you because you're totally right, Keegs, like underrated, absolutely sums Joe up. And I think throughout his career as well. But I think not many of us as fans, as broadcasters, whoever, realised actually just how pacey he is. We all put him down to having a lot of stamina. He's got a lot of legs on him, does Joe. Like, never stops. Really, really impressive part of his game. But I don't think anyone realised just how quick the man is until you've seen him against Leicester, against Manchester. And ever since then, I've kind of watched him and seen that little move he does where he basically shuffles it down the line about 20 yards in front of him and takes on a defender one-on-one against the right back. And he beats most of them, or they have to foul him. And it's happened quite recently. But just to go back to that, he has had this all his career, I think. He's had people underestimate him, underrate him, and he's certainly had it, like you rightly pointed out before, since he went on that 7-8 goal streak as well. Yeah. And it just took him time to kind of find his feet once again, to settle up here in the Northeast, because I think he was the first to say he was a bit homesick at the start, because, you know, he'd lived in London all of his life. To move up to Newcastle is a pretty big change. He's now happier up here. He's got the family up here now. He's got a dog, which he absolutely dotes on. And as a result, you are seeing that combined with Eddie's tactical influence and just ability to bring the very, very best out of the person and as a player. You're seeing those two things combined, and suddenly Joe Willock is turning into an undroppable member of Newcastle's first team. I just feel sorry for Maxi. Maxi can't get in because you've got a midfielder playing left wing. Can't drop him.
No.
Yeah.
Undroppable now. And I think
got two.
Willock was a bit like Bambi on ice, growing into his body, you know, like I think he was all legs, as you said, and it's just starting to hit for him now. And obviously coaching with Eddie and what he's doing, it's all starting to just pay off now, and his form's incredible. So he was another one on the night that was just relentless in his pressure and running, and, you know, absolutely amazing.
You know what? This started off a debate with me and a friend of mine the other night. I just kind of thought, I remembered it there when I said undroppable. Go through Newcastle's starting 11 against Leicester. Who would you drop out of that team? Anyone. Who would you pull out of that team at the moment?
No, that's our best 11, I reckon.
Longstaff. If we could find someone to replace Longstaff's work ethic, I just think, you know, I mean, bloody hell, he works so hard as well. You know, you've got to give credit to his defensive structures and patterns and everything like that. But he's just, you know, the Leeds game and then that one, unfortunately, just his finishing was off key. So I think he'd be the only one in question. The rest, nah, don't want to drop him.
Yeah,
I'll give it
so well. They're all playing so well at the moment. They're, you know, pretty much near the tops of their games. Actually, no, that's really unfair. Some of them have probably got even more improving to do. But it's frightening. And that's what you get when you get a team that are all on form at the same time. I mean, you can see what's happening as a result.
Apart from that one in the first minute that he sort of shinned, I wonder if half his shots he's absolutely fingered by the time he actually gets the ball to shoot. He's got nothing left to actually get. Like, he's just worked that hard that end product, he's just got nothing left in the tank to actually muster up a decent effort. So I wonder if that is. I
think he's also a victim of his own work rate in the sense that he gets into those positions. And I know that anyone who's played up front before will know if a striker's gone a long, long time without a goal, but they're getting chances, it will come because they're getting themselves into the position. And I think Longy does that. Longy picks up some great positions, and he continues. I said it on when we played Leeds, and obviously I said to Bruno post-match, like, do you feel like the chances fell to the wrong players? i.e. if it fell to Callum or if it fell to Miggy, then might have been talking 2 or 3-0. And in fairness to Bruno, he said, no, like Longy's a really great player, like Joel Linton is as well. But, it's just one of those things. The ball wouldn't go in. But, Longy, his finishing's probably not his highest quality. Like his work ethic is, his stamina, his positional sense, most certainly. His tackling's got a lot better as well. But the fact that he's so high on stamina and his positional sense is so good and he finds these positions, puts himself in the spotlight to miss those chances, really. I would never, ever begrudge him for missing these chances because at least he's in those positions and he will take one.
Well, that's what Shearer had said before. I'd heard him in an interview or something. Someone said, "Oh, would you be worried about not scoring?" He said, "No, I'm never worried about not scoring. I'm worried about if I'm not getting chances. If I'm missing them, I don't care because I know that eventually I'm going to start scoring them." So hopefully,
hey, if the great man says it, if
it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me.
That's it.
It's law. It's in the Bible.
I think the other thing with Longstaff, we're having this argument between us is you take him out of the team and you put, for instance, Tillemans, who's at Leicester, and every time I've seen him against us, he hasn't really been fantastic, and his work rate doesn't seem to be up to match. So we play system football under Howe, and each cog has to do their role and do it well. So I wonder taking Longy out and putting a bigger name in there would actually hurt our balance and what that looks like going forward.
I think that's a really, really good point. And the other point to make is, having played Leicester twice now in the space of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, Longy's actually outplayed Yuri Tillemans twice.
Yeah,
and it's not.
And we're really good.
Yeah, of course, he's in a better team at the minute. Leicester aren't particularly in great form, but he's completely head-to-head gone up against him and been far better than him. So what do? Do you go and splash serious money on a player like that? Or do you wait and maybe try and select a player who might be better suited towards Newcastle? Now, I think it's a bit unfair to maybe judge Tielemans off 2 games alone. Tielemans is an absolutely fine player. Really, really good player. And if we ended up with him, that's a heck of a signing in my book. I'm not going to kind of go into depth about the names and anyone else that might come into centre midfield. But just on those 2 performances alone, I thought Longy showed what he actually gives this Newcastle United side and has done for a lot of time this season. And it's not just down to personally liking him as a bloke, which I do. I think he's a tremendous lad. But I genuinely think he has a lot of value in this team. And I feel sometimes, just sometimes, the criticism goes a little bit too far with him. And at the very, very least, in the next 3 or 4 years, he'll be in the squad for Newcastle.
Eddie loves him, doesn't he?
Oh, he does. He also loves what he brings off the pitch too.
Yeah.
Dan was saying this the other week. 2 loudest people, Nick Pope, Sean Longstaff. You hear Nick Pope's laugh from, I don't know, like time now. And you can hear Longy normally, taking the piss or making a joke or something. And every dressing room, every successful dressing room at least, needs someone like that. Needs someone who literally will go up to Bruno and have a chat with him within the first 5 minutes of him arriving at Newcastle, will be best mates with Nick Pope within 2 weeks and be eating banana cake on a training camp. They need that Sean Longstaff person who's always chirping, always talking, always just that kind of heart.
The energy.
Yeah. And I feel he brings more than just on the pitch does Longy.
I think
it's interesting.
The one moment I remember with Longstaff that probably ties into that character is, do you remember the interview with Joel Linton with Sky? And they sort of were questioning him and his abilities, I suppose. And Longstaff just went into bat for him on a national audience. And I thought that was, I thought that was an incredible and, showed the type of bloke he was. Yeah,
it's a sign of a lad. Absolute sign of a lad. That. It's a really, really good point.
I like to think of, if you look at it as a holistic point of view, so if Newcastle are a band and every player has to bring an instrument, and if they don't bring their instrument, they won't function properly as a band. Like, for all the shit he gets, Sean does, his instrument's a key instrument in the band. And I think sometimes you need to look at it. He's got his flaws, and so does everyone. Like, Miggy doesn't have a right foot. Like, everyone's got their flaws, but sometimes people talk about their flaws too much and not actually focus on the good things that they do. And I think he's probably the biggest victim of that.
Absolutely.
I've got a question for you, Andy, and it's a 2-word answer. Winning the League Cup or Champions League? Winning the League Cup or Champions League? This is a hot bet in our podcast group.
League Cup.
Yeah. All
League
right.
Cup.
So you're a
League
sensible
Cup
one. Very interesting. Yeah.
Trophy every time.
Well said.
Finish fifth. Don't care. Champions League.
I just want to pay, before we move on for the game, I just want to pay homage for the first time since the song originated. We actually had Bruno in the middle, Botman at the back, and for the last 12 minutes we had Isaac in attack. So just a quick note. I wrote that down. So that was great to finally be a.
Don't think the t-shirt's got a notice, Keeg. I appreciate it, mate.
Yeah,
Bruno straight away on the t-shirt.
Yeah, I thought you'd like it. Yeah, hang on. I'll just pull it down a little bit. There you go.
Spot on. Absolutely brilliant. The man.
Now, while we've got you here, mate, conscious of your time and conscious of our time,
got 20 minutes.
It's coming up to 10 o'clock at night. Transfer windows open. Things seem to be pretty quiet. We did get a bit of a report from the Evening Standard. I'm not sure how reputable the Evening Standard is when it comes to transfers, but the 18-year-old a wonder kid, he's been dubbed from Dortmund, Mukoko.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about that? Do you know anything about that?
I've heard that there's definitely interest in because of his situation at Dortmund.
His contract situation's up at the end of the season as well. So
yeah, they're not. Yeah. I mean, look, if that lad's available, which I think he will be, there's going to be some serious clubs in for him. I think Barcelona are also interested. But then again, there were serious clubs in for Botman. And Newcastle sold the project. There's definite interest in there, but there's interest because of this model, and I'm going to come to the name that I'm pretty sure all of you listeners will want me to come to in a second. But that's the model that Dan Ashworth wants to implement: young, hungry, lots of talent. Mukoko, without a shadow of a doubt, fits that in the same mold as Garen Quall. Very much so in the same mode.
On Dan Ashworth, Bobby, we were fortunate enough to see him pre-game in the land of the Giants. You could have given him a phone book or something to stand on to next to Emil Heskey. But
where wants to talk, Keeks?
Put him next to Bird.
Yeah, him in the team photo, like he'd be the new Ryan Fraser if he finds a new club in January. Bobby, what did you make of his comments pre-game?
Oh, the professionalism of the bloke, and you're in good hands, or the club's in good hands anyway with this guy, steering the wheel and the ship, or whatever you want to say. So he was just he was open, he was honest, and you just think that, all right, I don't have to worry about what's going on with the transfer window as a fan, which is different from the last 14 years where, there was panic and there was dread and there was, sickness, everything with it. You just think we trust the club. We know we're going in the right direction. And this bloke is pretty much the best of the best. I think he is one of the great football minds in the country. And I think we're very lucky to have him, and, add to Darren Eales and Eddie Howe and all that. I think we've got a great group of guys to take us to where we want to go to. And as I said on Twitter, this League Cup semi-final, people want to, dismiss Southampton and all that sort of thing. It's fine, because enjoy this excitement, because this is the start of our journey. And it's the start of our journey because of the guys like Dan Ashworth and everything he said on Sky to Emil Heskey's crotch was absolutely perfect.
Oh, it was a moment for Sky, that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I won't ask you, Andy, for names and links, because there's probably 150 names on their list, and you probably don't know 138 of them. So, just in your opinion, what we're sort of led to believe and what's been said, there might only be maybe 2 or 3 signings this window. It's not going to be a massive window in terms of incomings and things like that. What positions would you target to try and get players in rather than players themselves? Because, yeah, it seems to be the way now, which is a great thing, I might add, that not much gets leaked out of that club anymore in terms of targets and even injuries and things like that. And I think that's a fantastic thing. But just in your opinion, what positions do you think the club should be looking to sort of improve on?
I think the 2 positions that they are looking to improve on, you're right, there's not going to be 5 or 6 signings in January. It'll be 2, I would have said. Maybe 3 at a push, but 2. They're going to be looking at a midfielder. They're going to be looking at a midfielder hard. Probably a defensive mid, someone who can sit behind Bruno. Because the injury to John Joe was really, really unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate because John Joe was looking good. Looking really good, look fitter than
I feel sorry for it. The best he's ever looked, and he hasn't kicked the ball barely the whole season.
And then he picks up an injury like that. So I think they've been not necessarily forced because I think they were going to be looking anyway at midfielder. But now that concern has become even more pressing. So I think if there's
do you think like someone who's going to be a first team or pushing for the first team or a sort of youth development player?
I think someone who they can bring in along the lines of a Botman. Someone who they can bring in and, they're not going to be spending 80, 90 million on them. They're going to be spending maybe 25, 30 million on them instead. And they're going to be 21, 22, young, hungry, lots of athleticism about them, excellent positional sense because you don't get into an Eddie Howe team without having a strong grasp on positional sense. But certainly a defensive midfielder because I think he wants to play Bruno further up as a number 8 anyway. But that's just a personal opinion, the way I've kind of seen Newcastle set up this season. Bruno further back nullifies the threats that he can bring further up. I see Bruno as that kind of tempo setter in midfield. He needs someone behind him to shield, plus needs someone behind him to fit in when Trips starts bombing forward. and Dan Burns starts bombing forward as well. I'll add Dan to that list. Definitely defensive mid. The other position is a right back. Not starting right back because Trips is the finest right back in the Premier League, I think. But someone who is going to be 18, 19, Fresneda from Spain is the one that I think that they are looking at very, very strongly. I can't see January ending without a deal possibly being done for him, or at least them doing their very, very best to get a deal struck for him. Because everyone I've spoken to inside Spain, but who knows Spanish football a hell of a lot better than I do, which is particularly hard, say he's a bloody good player. He's very raw, but that's the sort of player you want because in 3 or 4 years' time, he's going to be the man to come in and replace Trips. Good luck to anyone who's trying to do that to fill that man's boots because, honest to God, we wax lyrical about a lot of players, but he was the first to come in.
Yeah, the trailblazer. That's what I called him.
Brilliant.
Because I think, purely I think the FA Cup game showed our squad depth as a whole isn't as good as the other teams around us and stuff like that. But I still think them players coming in isolation, like if Trippier gets a yellow card and he's suspended for the next game, I think 1 in for 1, you can probably cover them. But when they make them wholesale changes, it's really hard for them players to sort of get up to speed. So if we can fatten up that squad even for the rest of the year because I think we've probably got maybe 13, 14, maybe decent first 11 players. I mean, if we can add another 2 in that sort of mold and get it out to 15, that might be enough to cover us off for the rest of the season until the summer comes. And if Dan Ashworth's Sky interview is anything to go by, I think we're going to launch pretty hard in the summer as well. That
kind of backs up what Eddie was saying to us the other week as well, because, I mean, he's pointed out, and I've pointed out in this podcast, the starting 11 is pretty strong. It's pretty strong indeed now. And his challenge was, look at that starting 11. Where would you improve? And improve in January as well. And it's very, very difficult to do that. Maybe a defensive midfielder, like I say, but elsewhere, I don't think you're going to improve that squad or that starting 11 too heavily. From a squad perspective, he's more than aware that, to compete on numerous fronts, and bearing in mind that we don't have Europe to contend with this season, next season, fingers crossed, we will. Whether that is Champions League or Europa League or Conference League or whatever it might be, there are going to be 4 different fronts for Newcastle to compete on. The squad is too thin at the moment to deal with 4 different fronts. Arsenal found this out a couple of seasons ago. Tottenham have found it. West Ham have found this out. And I don't think, like you rightly say about Dan Ashworth and Darren Eales, these are very, very, very intelligent people who've seen it, done it, got the T-shirt, who witnessed Tottenham and West Ham and Arsenal in Europe and thought, when we get there, we aren't going to run into those problems. We're going to learn from those problems. So I think the summer, while they will add probably maybe 2 glitzy signings, I think if you want to put them marquee signings, maybe, to put in there, a wing has been mooted quite heavily, probably strengthening either, I hate to say left back after Dan's performance, but, left back will be up there. Midfield is obviously up for strengthening as well. They're the kind of 3 positions I think they'll look at. But I think otherwise they'll bring in maybe 3 or 4 others, and there'll be a bit more of an overhaul of the squad. You'll see 5 or 6 leave. You'll see 3 or 4 come in who you can drop into an FA Cup tie against Sheffield Wednesday and think they'll get us through that. But then again, look, it can happen to anyone. It can happen to anyone that with the Sheffield Wednesday thing. Look what happened to Manchester City last night. Mm-hmm. They make a few changes. Southampton catch them on the hop. Suddenly they're kicked out of the League Cup. So, it's kind of how you interpret it. It depends on your perspective. But yeah, I think the summer is about the squad as well as adding maybe 1 or 2. And if they can get to the end of January and say, we've added a defensive midfielder and we've added a future right back, I think that's a very, very good January transfer window for Newcastle where we stand.
Anyone you think will leave, as Dex saying?
I think that the names are already out there that, I can't see being at Newcastle too much longer. The likes of Matt Ritchie, Ryan Fraser certainly will be in there. I know everyone's talking about Maxi at the minute, but Maxi's an integral part of that team from everything that Eddie said. So, that will continue. But yeah, the likes of Matt Ritchie, the likes of Ryan Fraser, like I say, probably a few others as well. You're probably looking at them. And just while we're on that about the players that leave, maybe Ryan aside, because he hasn't been there that long, but the likes of Matt Ritchie, for instance, if Jamal was to leave, for instance, I'm not saying he will, but what a job they've done for Newcastle United. I think it's been said, certainly by George Colkin and Chris Waugh in The Athletic. They always say things brilliantly in The Athletic, but they've pointed it out before, and I'll point it out again. They have been absolutely tremendous servants to Newcastle United before the days of money, before the days of the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund, Eddie Howe, all of that. We were skirting around relegation in the Championship to come back up to the Premier League, and the contribution of those players certainly can't be forgotten, regardless of where they end up when they still.
100%. And
I agree with that.
A mark of that is wherever they go, whether it's at the end of January or the end of the season, whatever, they'll always be welcomed back with open arms. And I think that's a true mark of a player at a club. If they're welcomed back, shows how they've been respected by not just the club, but the fans and things like that as well. So
what as well,
I 100% agree.
They were part of the project at the start, and no one's going to be able to take that away from them. And I would absolutely love it if we were to go and win the League Cup. And for someone like, I'm going to take Jamal, for instance, who I've talked about long and hard since the takeover went through, about, have you dreamed about winning a cup? Of course he has. Of course he has. He's the club captain. And I would love it to copy Kevin Keegan. Absolutely love it if Jamal Lascelles could go and leave with a medal, with a winning medal from Newcastle United, because I feel like that would be the perfect way to sum up their contribution to the club.
Yeah, well said. I agree.
100%. All right, we've got a couple of viewer questions that's been sent in through our socials during the week as well, Andy. So we'll kick off with that. We'll kick off with the hard hitting ones, and we'll get a bit sort of easier after that. All right. So
go on.
The first,
I'm terrified about this.
Yeah, so I would be too. I don't know how you're going to answer it. McDonald's, KFC, or Burger King?
Oh, McDonald's every single day of the week.
McDonald's. All right.
Nick Pope.
Yeah.
Can't believe I didn't come up with that straight away.
So, this one's from Dex as well. When you sit in at a press conference, how do you feel when your peers ask stupid questions or challenge Eddie on geopolitics? Or is there So is there an unwritten code of conduct in there?
Right, I'm going to retort to that. Has Dex ever seen Eddie Howe press conference? Because it's usually me asking the stupid question. It's usually me asking him, is there, how would you feel about cameras around you at the training ground? How would, what his favourite karaoke song or whatever the hell is? I'm usually that idiot in the press conference surrounded by much more intelligent people than I am who ends up asking that stupid question. So, Dex, no, there's no code of conduct because I'm still allowed back. So I feel like I'm getting away with it. But no, what? I'll answer it properly.
A question from Lee.
Oh, go on. It's fine. I was going to say.
Finish it already.
Finish yours. I was going to say that yes, there has been moments, not with the local. It's normally when someone else is at. The only time ever that I've kind of started a little bit in a press conference was Eddie's first press conference. And an organisation brought up a journalist from down south. And you know what? Obviously, the question is going to be about the ownership. Totally understand that. There is a question that needs to be asked. I can't ask it because I work for Premier League, but those questions need to be asked 110%. But when you're asking 5 in a row and they're the same question, and Eddie is literally replying in the exact same way, either change up your style of question or, kind of move on. That's the only ever time I've looked around and gone, I feel like that's a little bit too much. Fine on the content, it was just a little bit. But otherwise, I don't think there's too many stupid questions that don't originate from someone called, from someone called Andy Sixsmith, really.
All right, I've got an Andy question for you then, Andy. Lee, who's a big fan of the show, wants to know if you could pick one current player to have a pint with, who would you pick?
Oh, shit. I've got to say Bruno, haven't I? I don't know. It depends on what sort of pint. Is this the sort of pint where you're like, it's just one pint, we're going out for just one pint after work? Is it a pint where you're like, this could get a bit messy later on tonight? We're going to.
That's up to you. I think that's up to you, mate.
I'll go for both.
Yeah.
If it's a pint where you think I'm going to end up in a karaoke bar, then it has to be the man of the week, and that is Dan Burn. 100%.
Yeah.
I'm going to the karaoke bar after that with Dan Burn, and he's doing the dance on stage in Cozy Joe's. Yeah. If I just want a pint with one, does it have to be a player? Because I would say Eddie, to be fair. No, it's a player. Fuck it, Bruno. It's always Bruno, isn't it? Honourable shout outs to Nick Pope would be great crack. Miggy would just smile. Longy would be great crack. Yeah, I mean, there's so many of them, but yeah, I've got to go. Got to go the OG Bruno, haven't I?
All right.
Yeah.
We'll try and keep these ones short and sweet. We've got Luke as well. Maxi, in or out of the squad? In. All right.
Do I have to give a reason?
Mel. No, just in's fine. Will we win the League Cup?
Yes.
Yes.
Going to beat Manchester United 3-1 in the final.
Oh.
If we've got an NUFC fan, yes. If we fail to qualify for the Champions League, would that be classed as a failure based on where we are now?
No. Think of where we were 12 months ago. No, absolutely 100% no.
On your Man United thing there, would you have preferred them over 2 legs or just getting you in the final?
They were listening to a conversation I was having with one of my mates last night. Yes.
Yeah, so there's spies everywhere.
Is it semi-final? In the semi-final is at home. And I would have absolutely loved, although it would be just like us. And this is going through years and years of supporting the club rather than the last, year and a half. But it would have been just like us to have beaten Man U in the semi-final and, with all due respect, lost to Nottingham Forest in the final.
Yeah, yes, 100%.
You know what? I'm torn, but I would have loved to have had Man U in a semi-final second leg at St James's Park.
Just for the occasion. Absolutely rocking.
I just can't wait.
I think it's going to be rocking anyway.
Oh, it is. Right. Yeah. Southampton will be tough. Southampton are going to be very, very tough. They're a better side, I think, than people give them credit for. But I think we'll be too strong for them with the second leg at home.
We've got one last one from Lisa, also a big fan of the show. What's your favourite ever Toon shirt?
Easy. 95, 96, Newcastle Brown Ale, black and white, although solid mention for the away shirt. Also, big mention for the Northern Rock shirt as well.
Yeah,
But definitely the 95, 96 one.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's boring.
Bob, have
answer,
we got anything else? No, that's your answer. It's not boring.
I should have gone for the green and white away strip this year and really caused a scene.
Yeah. Bobby, you've been on comments duty tonight. Anything else in the comments that for Andy,
I've got 5 or 10 minutes, boys. If you want to keep throwing them, absolutely fine. If you've got questions or whatever, I've got 10 minutes until I need to go to the training ground. So anytime.
Oh, what are you doing at the training ground today?
That's all right.
What was that, Bobby?
What are you doing at the training ground today?
Weekly player interview today. It's not with Dan.
Not with Dan. Oh, what a shame. Imagine that.
No, it's with Fabi Share this week.
No.
Yeah.
Still pretty good.
Nice.
Good crap. Fabi had a front row seat to Dan's dance on Tuesday night. It was literally that far away from him, wasn't he? So I will be asking him probably for about 8.5 of our 10-minute allocation about Dan's dancing.
I think even with Fabian Shah, you'll get lost in his eyes though. He's one good-looking rooster, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a dream bug. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we've got quite a good-looking, squad right now. Loris Carriers, whether he stays or not. But then you've got Sven Botton's a good-looking man. Fabian Share, it's a good-looking back four. In fairness, I mean, Dan would hate it if I didn't say he wasn't a good-looking lad. Bruno's decent looker. Carl, I mean, Christ, best-looking 11 in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
What we need actually is this is me going completely off on a tangent now. Did you ever see that feature with Manchester City? And I can't remember his name, and that's going to annoy me. But the posh lad who basically waited at the reception and called Erling Haaland a Nordic meat shield, and Calvin Phillips. Oh
yeah, when they were walking through on there, was it a pre-season tour or something they were on? Yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
we need to get him up here to do that. To Newcastle's players. That would be sensational to see what he comes up with there. I can't remember his name now. But he had some brilliant comments. He confused Jack Grealish, I think.
I don't think he knew what was going on. Imagine he gives something to the Mad Dog on the way through and Mad Dog just gives him an absolute spray on the way past him. Yeah.
We do have a question here. How high does Eddie rate Lewis Miley? I was actually really interested in this kid. He's sort of broken into the scene now, and whilst he won't probably get many minutes, he's definitely in contention. What do you know of him and like?
So I don't know how high Eddie rates him because I haven't asked him yet. But the mere fact that he's been promoted through the squads in the way that he has means Eddie rates him bloody highly. I will put that there straight away. From what I've heard about him from other people, I've only seen him play a couple of times. He is very, very good.
He's a tall midfielder, isn't he?
Yeah.
Very tall. Yeah.
Yeah. He's about 6'3", 6'4", I think, something like that. So I wasn't rubbing that in, Bobby, with the 5'3" comment earlier.
I'm not really 5'3". That's Keegan. So.
No, 5'5".
5'5" something.
5'3" without shoes on.
Without the platforms on. Yeah, he's a hell of a prospect. And if he has been promoted through the squads like he has, Eddie rates him very, very highly indeed.
And probably last one, will Elliot Anderson go out on loan?
No, don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. It would have to be a really, really attractive prospect. I don't think. You know what? Actually, I'm going to revise that. Now we've gone out the FA Cup. Possibly. But I think the argument is to keep him. Especially with Garang going out, obviously, to Hearts. I think they want to keep Elliot because he'll still get minutes in the Premier League every now and again. And he can still make a difference. So I think they will keep him. But you can come back to me on the 1st of February when he goes to Ipswich or somewhere like that.
We will, don't worry. We will.
Andy Sixsmith in the know. Fucking hell, he's done it again. Elliot Anderson's definitely staying. He's a Borough. Right, okay.
Yeah. He's staying in the country. That's what he meant. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. Andy, it's been an absolute blast having you on again, mate. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, mate.
Once again, everyone who has a spare £1 or 5 or 10, 15, 20, whatever you have, please log on to Andy's socials. Is it Just Giving? I think it is the Fact 15. He's going to be doing some crazy shit this year, so get around him. crazy shit.
If and ending up in a karaoke bar, but you never know. There's hope one day.
I think one of the 15 challenges to be running home from the karaoke bar after drinking all night with them. Jump on his socials for links. We'll post it in our show notes as well. Bobby, thank you, mate, for your time. I know it's getting a bit late for us now, so Andy, once again, stoked to have you on.
My pleasure, folks. Anytime. I said it last time.
Hopefully,
anytime you need us on.
We can. We'll touch base after the transfer window and see where we've landed. See which club Elliot Anderson's at now. And so good luck today with Fabi. Thanks again for everyone watching, sending their likes, comments, questions. It's been fantastic. And all our listeners as well. If you get a chance, please give us a 5-star review. And that just about wraps it up. It's been a great week. Hopefully that can continue on the weekend against Fulham and Eddie's Mighty Mags can stay in third place. So thanks, everyone, and we'll catch you all later on. See ya.
Yeah, guys.